Okay, hi team. You are all superstars. Thank you so much for all the effort that you're putting into the upcoming Unit 2 exam. So this video clip is going to go over theme 7. All right, so we're going to go through the answers to the sample assessment material for theme 7, last theme in Unit 2. All right, so let's get started. First of all, section B, options, answer one question, either 3 or 4. We know that we answer question 3, all right? We answer question 3 on social development. We completely ignore question 8, we don't attempt it. So, study map 3.1. Map 3.1, standard of living in Pakistan measured using Human Development Index. In which continent is Pakistan for 1 mark? Now, okay, you've got the country here, you have to look to the world map, so make sure you use all of the source. On the world map it's here, so you need to know your continents, and you need to know that it is in Asia, so 1 mark for Asia. Next section then, use map 3.1 to complete the box below, to give the latitude. The A in latitude is lines across the earth, and the longitude, the lines down the earth, of Karachi, and there it is. Okay, they've labelled it on the map for you. So your latitude, your line across the earth, we are, where are we? So if you think it's either going to, we're on the east, going east across the earth, so it is probably about, what, 2, 5, 6, 7, you could have had a mark for 6, 8 as well. And then the longitude, it is in the northeast. Okay, so longitude, northeast. There you go. All right. So next section then. Use map 3.1 to describe the distribution. Now this is a common term, as we know. Describe the distribution, describe the spread, the pattern, where it is, of places within Pakistan that have the highest standard of living, for 2 marks. Now in this case it's 2 marks, so we would probably, you're going to need to see the map as well, obviously, to say the spread where they are. 2 marks, we're going to do an emergency mark too. So we're going to say that they're generally found around cities. Obviously you're writing this in sentences. They are scattered. There is none in the west. Okay, so there we've made sure that we've got 3 marks. So we've got 2 marks plus an emergency mark. Right, HDI is an indicator of social development. Choose one other indicator of social development from the list below. Okay, so gross national income is a measure is economic development. Percentage of workforce employed in the primary sector, again, is economic. Adult literacy rates is social. Right, describe how this indicator shows social development. Okay, well, it shows the lack of education. So it shows lack of education, or it shows the lack of schools available. Shows the lack of schools available. It shows that there's poor funding, or not a lot of money, or not enough money to get educated. Okay, so we've got 2 points there for any of these. Also, our emergency mark, it could show that children are needed for work as child labourers. So instead of going to school, they're sending their children to work, which then reflects, because there will be a low adult literacy rate, not many will be educated because they'll be in work instead. Right, study graph 3.2 below shows the relationship between GNI and infant mortality. So as your infant mortality goes down, your GNI goes up. Okay, the more money you have, the less children are dying. So draw a line of best fit. Now obviously in this exam you're going to have a calculator and a ruler. Naturally, me being me right now, I don't have access to a ruler. But your line of best fit, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10 points on this. So you probably know that your line of best fit with your ruler is going to be running, so there's 5 points above, and 5 points below, and it's going to be a straight line like that. Okay, straight line. You're not going to have a positive, you're going to have a negative. Okay, so use graph 3.2 to describe the relationship between GNI and infant mortality. Now at this point, for 2 marks, you need to talk about the pair of them together. So not talk about GNI and then infant mortality. You need to use a comparative word or something that links them together. But overall, as we said, there's a negative correlation or a negative relationship. Okay, because this line is going in this direction rather than this way. So infant, you can write this in any way you want to, but basically infant mortality decreases the higher the GNI is. Now you could have actually written that in any way. You could say the higher the GNI is, the lower the infant mortality. However you want to get that sentence across. All right. So next then, explain why. So we know we're not weighing up or assessing, we're just saying why infant mortality rates are high in sub-Saharan African countries for 6 marks. Okay, so I'm going to plan mine here. I'm going to plan my essay. You obviously will write yours out. You could talk about so much in this. You could talk about poor healthcare. We know that in sub-Saharan African countries there's poor healthcare, which means that parents die in childbirth, means that children don't get the medical care that they need when they're young. So you can talk about poor healthcare linked to lack of money. So you could link that to money as well. You can talk about conflict and war and how conflict has meant that money has been spent perhaps on that rather than on medical care. They all link together. Can talk about famine and the correct diet and how actually infants, mothers and infants, aren't getting the correct nutrients, the correct food that they need to survive. So you can actually link famine and poor diet. Okay. You can talk about lack of safe water. We've done so much on water security. You could say lack of safe, clean drinking water and how many people die from drinking dirty water every day. Okay, and that actually links to poor sanitation. People don't have access to showers, toilets, etc. Right? You could talk about HIV, AIDS as well, which we've done so much on, and talk about malaria. Now, in a 6-mark question, do not pick all of those, right? Don't pick all of those points. Pick a few points and go into them in detail. 2, 3, 4 points. 3, 4 points would be ideal. So for me, I'm going to talk about malaria first of all. My first point is going to be malaria. I'm going to talk about malaria in Malawi. My evidence that I'm going to give is that 60% of those under 3 have got malaria in Malawi. So that's going to be my evidence. I'm going to say that malaria is responsible for 40% of child deaths. Okay. I'm going to say that children are more vulnerable to malaria. And that is why, if we think linking it back to the question, that is why there's infant mortality rates are high, because they're more vulnerable. Okay, so if you think as well, remembering we're following point, evidence, explain, link. You probably do what, 2-3 peel paragraphs. So my next point is actually going to be Malawi as well, HIV and AIDS, and say that in 2014 there were 2.6 million children living with HIV and AIDS in Malawi. So that's another reason for it. Okay, I'm going to mention as well here, due to lack of funding, due to lack of money, due to conflict and war taking the funding, you could even talk about poor governance, due to lack of education. Okay, a child with an uneducated mother is twice as likely to die. Okay, so that's another reason lack of education in sub-Saharan Africa is leading to high infant mortality. So make sure in an explain question you are following point, evidence, explain, link. Worst case scenario in the exam, you forget the evidence. Make sure your explanations are on point. You will still be able to get the marks, okay? So worst case scenario in the exam, you forget the evidence. You will still be able to get the marks with your explanation. So point, evidence, explain, link. Okay? So on to the next one then. But remember, do not talk about all of those. Just pick a few to explain. Next one, which would actually be your last question on the exam in this case. Now, we like